Officer Russell Danner tapped the juvenile impairment box before he asked Micah Bennett a single question about alcohol. Micah could not see the patrol computer. He sat inside a hand-me-down Honda Civic on the shoulder of Route 42, both hands resting high on the steering wheel. Rainwater moved through the gravel beside the tires. A brass debate trophy leaned against the passenger seat belt. Next to it, a black school recorder was still running. Micah had switched it on after leaving the university auditorium. His coach required a spoken review after every final round. What worked? What failed? What needed to change before nationals? The recorder uploaded 30-second segments to the school's debate account. Micah had been halfway through describing his closing argument when the blue lights appeared. Now Officer Danner stood at the window with a flashlight, aimed past Micah's cheek. License, registration, insurance. My wallet is in my rear pocket, Micah said. The registration is inside the glove compartment. May I reach for them? Danner looked across the roof at Officer Adam Keating. You hear that? He said. Every movement comes with an announcement. Keating gave a short smile. It disappeared when Micah looked at him. Micah retrieved the documents slowly. Danner read the license under the flashlight. His thumb stopped beside the address. Briar Glen. A neighborhood of stone entrances, private walking paths and houses set far back from the road. Who at this address is expecting you? My father. What does he do? Micah kept his hands visible. Is that related to the reason you stopped me? Danner folded the registration against the license. You practice traffic stops in debate club. No, sir. The officer's flashlight moved toward the passenger seat. It passed over the trophy, the tournament badge, and the thrift store jacket Micah had removed after the final round. Danner returned to the cruiser. Micah watched him through the mirror. Keating stood near the rear wheel, rubbing rain from his body camera lens with one finger. Inside the cruiser, Danner opened the impairment worksheet. Driving behavior remained blank. Odor remained blank. Eye condition remained blank. Under speech condition, he selected rehearsed responses. Keating leaned close enough to see the screen. He said nothing. Danner returned to the Honda and handed none of the documents back. Step out. Am I being investigated for a traffic violation or impairment? I'm determining that now. Micah unfastened the seatbelt. He opened the door slowly and stood beside the rear quarter panel. Danner searched his pockets. A wallet, a phone, spearmint gum, the paper name badge from the tournament. Nothing else. Any alcohol in the car? No. Medication? No. Marijuana? No. Danner pointed toward the passenger door. Keating opened it. Micah looked from the open door to Danner. I do not consent to a vehicle search. Danner did not answer. He lifted the trophy by its wooden base and set it on the wet shoulder. Keating pulled the first binder from the seat. Tabs marked each section. Search standards. Juvenile procedure. Equal protection. Several pages slipped from the rings and landed near a shallow puddle. Danner picked up one sheet. He read the heading and gave it to Keating. So that's where the script comes from. Micah's jaw tightened. You're deciding what happened before you finish asking. Danner turned toward him. Micah stopped. He drew one breath. Then he said, I am asking you to record the order accurately. Keating looked down at the binder in his hands. Danner searched the backpack, the center console, and the spare tire compartment. He found 2 pens, a phone charger, a granola wrapper, and a folded tournament schedule. No bottle, no drugs, no open container. The rain darkened the shoulders of Micah's suit. Danner walked back to Keating near the passenger door. His voice dropped, but the recorder beneath the seat remained less than 4 feet away. Put odor observed before exit. Keating looked at him. I didn't. His behavior fits. We need the sequence complete. Danner nodded toward the cruiser. You want this stop sitting unfinished on your evaluation? Keating carried the binder to the patrol computer. The supplemental screen asked whether the second officer independently confirmed the observation. 2 options appeared. Confirmed. Not confirmed. Keating placed one finger on the trackpad. Micah could not see the screen. He saw only Keating's shoulders settle before the click. Confirmed. Danner removed the handcuffs from his belt. Micah kept his arms at his sides. No test has been offered, he said. Please include that before you restrain me. Danner turned him toward the cruiser and closed the first cuff. Micah did not pull away. The second cuff locked. Danner keyed his radio. 1. Juvenile in custody. Suspected impairment. Subject became argumentative during the investigation. The trophy remained on the gravel. Water reached the corner of a debate brief. The black recorder stayed beneath the passenger seat, its small indicator blinking against the carpet. Miles away, The school server accepted another segment. 11:18 and 30 seconds through 11:19 upload complete. There was one entry on the impairment screen that could not be true. Did you notice which one was already there? After the report is finished, Sergeant Victor Ames said it without looking up. A juvenile intake card sat beneath his left hand. The top line held Micah Bennett's name. The Guardian contact box remained empty. Micah stood on the other side of the counter, without his belt or shoelaces. A clear property envelope rested in a gray tray behind Ames. His wallet and house key were visible through the plastic. "My father has not been notified," Micah said. "Officer Danner is still completing the arrest packet. Does the phone call depend on his report?" Ames moved the intake card beneath the clipboard. "It depends on processing." That answer closed nothing. Naomi Ruiz sat at the next terminal. She scanned the intake screen, then looked at the clock mounted above the secure door. Micah had entered the precinct 11 minutes earlier. No Guardian time had been entered. No test result appeared. No medical check had been completed. Naomi lifted a narrow wrist measurement strip from a drawer. "I need to document the restraint marks." Ames turned his chair toward her. "Juvenile desk can handle that." The juvenile desk closed at 10. "Then leave it for morning shift." Naomi kept the strip in her hand. Micah placed both wrists above the counter. Red bands crossed the skin below each palm. One side had begun to swell. Naomi measured without touching the broken skin. She wrote the width on a small injury card and placed the card face down beside her keyboard. Danner entered through the side door carrying a half-filled paper cup. "Why isn't he in holding?" "Guardian notification," Naomi said. Danner set the cup beside Ames's clipboard. "His father can be called after I finish probable cause." Micah looked at the wall phone. The receiver hung less than 6 feet away. "I am not asking to discuss the case," he said. "I am asking to notify my guardian." Danner pulled a chair away from the counter with his boot. "Sit down while adults finish their work." Micah sat. He did not answer the sentence. A patrol officer brought an adult detainee through the same door several minutes later. The man signed a release slip, received a brown property envelope, and walked out with one shoe untied. Micah remained in the plastic chair. Ames moved Micah's envelope from the gray tray to a shelf marked pending. That small movement explained the whole delay. Nothing had been denied. Nothing had been approved. The request had simply been placed somewhere that did not require an answer. Naomi opened the wall phone log. "Sergeant, I need a guardian number." "Ask Danner." Danner was standing near the copy machine. "Officer Danner?" "Ask the kid." Micah gave the number from memory. Naomi entered it, but the call button stayed inactive. The intake status had not been submitted. She turned the monitor toward Ames. "The system will not release the line." Ames reached for his coffee. "Then we wait for the packet." Micah looked at the blank Guardian box. "What time did you mark the start of custody?" Ames lowered the cup. "You like timestamps. I like knowing what was recorded." Danner gave a short laugh near the copier. Naomi did not. She changed the intake status from draft to pending review. The wall phone unlocked. Micah dialed the chamber's emergency number his father had made him memorize years earlier. Judge Elias Bennett answered on the second ring. Micah told him where he was. He described the restraints, the missing test, and the delayed call. Elias did not ask Micah to prove what happened. He asked for the custody time, then the property receipt number, then whether anyone had photographed his wrists. Naomi wrote each answer on the injury card. When the call ended, she used the same number for the required Guardian callback. A blue routing banner appeared across her monitor. United States District Court Chambers Emergency Line. Naomi read it twice. The second banner followed. Potential municipal conflict. Notify command review. Ames set down the coffee. Danner stopped feeding paper into the copier. No one announced who Micah's father was. The terminal had already sent the notification. Elias arrived 20 minutes later, in a white shirt, dark coat, and ordinary leather shoes. He gave Naomi his identification and waited while she completed the callback verification. "I'm Micah's father," he said. Danner stepped forward with the paper cup still in his hand. This was a standard impairment stop. Elias looked first at Micah's wrists, then at the blank space on the wall phone log. "I need counsel present before my son answers anything else." Danner began explaining field observations. Elias did not interrupt him. He asked Naomi for the time of the first Guardian request. Ames said that time had not been separately recorded. Naomi turned over the injury card. She had written it there. Across the room, Adam Keating checked his department phone. A message from Danner waited on the screen. "Keep the order consistent. Odor, exit, search." Below it, sat two options in the protected evidence portal. Upload, cancel. Keating's evaluation depended on Danner. The message depended on Keating. Send it and place his own name inside the investigation, or close the screen and let the delay finish its work. Which choice would you make when silence required only one tap? 3-seat placards stood behind the review table. Russell Danner, Adam Keating, Victor Ames. Micah sat with his father in the second row. Judge Elias Bennett wore a navy suit. No robe, no court seal. His hands rested on a closed legal pad. At the front, Helen Dorsey placed a certification agenda beneath a document lens. Chief Dana Whitlock spoke first. Department policy gives officers discretion during suspected impairment contacts. Helen turned one page. Discretion to do what? To respond to safety indicators as they develop. A cruiser door event table appeared on the projection monitor. The passenger door had opened before any safety basis was entered. Whitlock adjusted the microphone. Officers are not required to narrate every observation in real time. Helen pointed to the next column. The department requires a legal basis before a non-consensual search begins. Danner's attorney raised juvenile confidentiality. He asked that portions of the review remain closed because Micah was 17. Helen placed a redaction sheet beside the agenda. The child's medical and educational details are protected, she said. The officer's actions are not. The distinction remained on the table. Danner described Micah's speech as unusually controlled. He said the rehearsed responses made impairment difficult to assess. He called Micah's questions a safety concern. Helen opened a version history printout. The first entry contained no odor. The second appeared after the vehicle search. The third added the word argumentative after the restraints had been applied. Danner leaned toward his attorney. Helen did not ask whether he considered himself prejudiced. She asked which written policy allowed articulate speech to replace slurred words, loss of balance, or a failed test. No section number was offered. Keating was called next. A sealed message export lay in front of him. His account identifier appeared beneath Danner's instruction. Keep the order consistent. Odor, exit, search. Keating admitted he had not detected marijuana. He admitted he had selected the confirmation field because Danner controlled his field evaluation. Why did you preserve the message? Helen asked. Keating pressed his thumbnail against the table edge. Because I had already put my name behind something I did not observe. His cooperation reduced the recommended penalty. It did not remove his name from the finding. Ames relied on processing policy. He said arresting officers normally completed their packets before guardian procedures moved forward. Helen placed the written juvenile directive beside his statement. The directive said notification should begin when custody began. Not after probable cause. Not after intake. Custody. Micah was asked one factual question. Had he refused a sobriety or chemical test? No test was offered. He stopped there. Judge Bennett did not address Danner. He did not request a particular punishment. When the panel asked what remedy the family wanted, he passed the question to Micah. Micah looked down at the certification agenda. Notify the other families whose cases use the same fields. The panel recessed. One reporter closed a laptop. A clerk replaced the water pitcher. Danner remained beside his attorney, turning his access token over between two fingers. The findings were issued the following week. Danner was terminated for cause. His file was sent to the State Certification Board and the county prosecutor for review of false statements, unlawful search, and deprivation of rights. His system access ended before he left the administrative floor. When he pressed the token against the records room reader, the light changed from green to red. He tried once more. The reader gave the same answer. A supervisor directed him toward the public elevator. Keating received an unpaid suspension. He lost solo stop authority and second officer approval privileges. His certification record carried two sustained findings: failure to intervene and false electronic confirmation. He was required to assist with the review of every juvenile stop, in which he had signed another officer's observation. He was not praised for cooperating. He had waited too long for that. Ames lost juvenile sign-off authority. The intake files he had approved with blank guardian fields were reopened. Whitlock could no longer close complaints involving youth stops without an external reviewer. The city placed the department under independent monitoring for 18 months. The review extended beyond Micah. 4 juvenile cases were immediately flagged because the same sequence appeared in each file. Search first, odor entry second, confirmation last. 2 charges were dismissed. 1 school suspension based on an arrest notice was removed from a student record. Another family received a letter explaining that the city could no longer support the officer's report. The letters did not use the phrase misunderstanding. The department issued a compliance directive. A search basis now had to be completed before a vehicle entry event. A second officer had to enter an independent observation or select descent. The Guardian timer began when restraint status was activated. Later edits remained visible. Terms such as rehearsed, overly controlled, and evasive were placed in a monthly language audit when used to describe juveniles. No officer could use clear speech, knowledge of rights, or a request for legal grounds as an impairment indicator. The city also created a review fund for families whose juvenile cases were reopened. It covered record correction, towing fees, medical documentation, and independent legal review. The changes fit on 3 pages. They removed the places where discretion had been allowed to erase sequence. Micah's charges were dismissed and expunged. The city paid for the torn suit, the damaged school materials, and treatment for his wrists. A document restoration service dried and separated the debate pages that could be saved. Several months later, Micah sat at a national qualifying round. 3 index cards rested beside a brass desk lamp. The restored debate binder lay closed beneath the table. Its pages were slightly rippled near the bottom edge. A moderator checked the timer. Another student adjusted a chair. Micah waited for his name. When it was called, he stood and buttoned the jacket that still sat slightly wide across his shoulders. He began in the same measured voice Danner had called suspicious. No one asked who had trained him to sound calm. No one entered that calm into a risk field. The timer started, and the room listened to his argument instead of inventing one for him. This is a fictional story created to examine procedure, accountability, and institutional reform.